Many of my clients have said when I'm doing a design consultation with them that I point out things they never would have thought to notice, and then once they see it, they can't unsee it. I'm Vanessa, a diamond expert and founder of Vanessa Nicole Jewels, and I've been creating rings for over 20 years for clients all over the world. And one of the things that sets my company apart from other jewelry stores is you get to work one-on-one with the artist who's actually going to be making your ring. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on how to get a truly stunning ring, because you know my goal for these videos is to give you insight and confidence in what to watch out for, whether you're working with me or anywhere else on your ring. Okay, let's dive in. Number one, bulky or uneven prongs. It is so disheartening when you see a ring finally in person after waiting for it to be made exclusively for you, and then you see that the prongs look uneven. So if you take a look at this design here, this prong is not the same shape or size as this prong here. And this one has a little bit of a corner here. This one has another leading corner right there. They just have an uneven wobbliness to them, and they just don't look as symmetrical and even as possible. So number one, the shape, but also just how symmetrical they are. Now, I don't mind round prongs when a design calls for it, and that is the number one style that you'll see most often because they are the fastest to produce. I typically tend to use claw prongs on my rings because I just love how they flow in line with the facets of the diamond. So if you take a look at this facet, for example, this is like a triangular claw, and that's what I like to be inspired by when I create the claws on my rings. And my clients absolutely love how it looks, and I do spend a lot of time to make sure they're done just right in order to get this beautiful claw shape. And it's almost as if you don't even notice that they're there because your eye doesn't go straight to them. When you look at settings that have the round prongs, your eye tends to look at them a little bit more versus the thin claws, because I mean, they just blend in with the facets of the diamond. Here's another example, and then here's another example. So this is a ring that I did not do, but it is an example of what I typically see on mass-produced rings and even custom rings if there is not careful attention taken, because you know the computer rendering is going to show one image, but it's actually a human hand who creates the final prongs, because when you cast a piece, the prongs stick straight up, and then you have to bend them over, and that is where the artistic vision comes into play. Number two, prongs that snag or are scratchy. If you take a look at this ring, we didn't create this, but it's a perfect example of prongs that are unnecessarily too high. It's going to catch and snag on sweaters, anything that has fibers such as clothing, and then you're going to be left with all these little pieces of fibers that are sticking out that you're constantly going to have to pull out. But not only that, it is going to feel scratchy. This can easily scratch your face or get caught in your hair. It's just not a comfortable setting when the prongs are sticking up like this. And a lot of times high prong settings can catch more so than lower pronged settings. And a lot of my clients, they're nurses or they wear plastic gloves for their work and they prefer a lower profile setting. This one's considered a little bit more higher up. So it really is what your preference is. We didn't create this setting either, but it's a perfect example of where it's going to catch on things or snag. And then this prong here, it's very, very low and there's not really much metal going on here, whereas this one's just lifted up. And so it's really not ideal when you see pieces like that, because that's what's going to catch. And people don't realize that when they picture their dream ring and then the prongs just, they're just like a nightmare to wear. And so a lot of people say they never realize that until they start wearing it. And then they're very careful about what they purchase from then on in terms of the craftsmanship and making sure that those prongs are really nicely laid down on top of a setting. Here's an example of a princess cut ring. We didn't make this, but it's a perfect example of bulky prongs that aren't necessary. So you want to have these chevron V-tips like this when it comes to a princess cut. So take a look at this ring that I designed, and you can see these very, very petite chevron V-tips that are holding in that diamond. It is absolutely gorgeous, and you don't see any unnecessary bulkiness to the prongs. It's the exact amount that's necessary to securely hold in that diamond. You can make it very, very, absolutely gorgeous and harmonious with these corners instead of something like this, because this is just unnecessarily bulky. Take a look at this radiant cut. It's trying to go for the claw shape, but it's not actually achieving the true claw. So you want to make sure that the rest of them are also even and symmetrical, whereas this just has this uneven bulkiness. This is something you would want to avoid. Here's an example of a radiant cut. We just recently finished this one. Take a look at these prongs. You're not noticing them as much because they blend in with the facets of the diamond. Even if you zoom in on the image here, you're really not noticing the prongs quite as much as something like this, where you're going to be noticing that they're just not even. So here's an example of a pear cut. Now, this is obviously not, these prongs are not symmetrical. This one's way down to the bottom. This one's jacked up higher than this one. If you were to take a ruler and just bring a line right all the way across, look how far down this prong is as opposed to this one. So, and then if you were to take the same ruler all the way across, it really should be around here instead of way down here. But aside from just the symmetry of it, which drives me crazy, take a look at just how uneven the shape of them are and then the bulkiness of this chevron V-tip. It's just not necessary. Even when you have a solitaire, this is really how ideally it would look, where you have these very thin, dainty claw prongs that are holding in the diamond. And you could also have an extra prong here. It just wasn't necessary in this case. We've got plenty of support under here for this diamond, whereas something like this, it's just jacked up so unnecessarily high and there's no support underneath here. So you absolutely would need these extra prongs up here in this case, but something like this that just is overly bulky. So taking a look at these prongs, these are actually double claw prongs, but you can still see how sleek they are on the setting rather than being bulky. And I'm just going to show you how sleek these prongs can look, especially here on a solitaire and then on a halo with an emerald cut. So these are examples that you want to mimic whenever you're going for a final ring. You don't want it to be too bulky. So if you're looking for a ring designer and you see my pieces and love them, you know, what I'm talking about here in this video are some of the principles that lead toward that result. And when collaborating on a custom ring, my eye will catch just these subtle nuances with proportion and angles and craftsmanship that most people, they're not seeing. So when I first started in this business, I thought everyone could see what I saw. And then later I realized that it's one of my superpowers, if you will, that sets me apart. And I'm so grateful for it because, you know, I just believe the smallest details make a dramatic difference. I'm obsessed with maximizing diamond brilliance through precision settings. So where can things go wrong is what you see in this video. Often these mishaps, they happen with mass manufacturers, but you know, it's definitely seen in custom pieces as well, because every human hand is different when it comes to craftsmanship. And while technology such as computer-aided design, it's certainly helped, you know, a human hand is what ultimately takes care of the final output. And my best clients, they have an appreciation for the time that it takes to achieve fine craftsmanship through beautiful artistry that symbolizes the foundation of love in their marriage. And for me, it's not just a ring. I want to craft something that is, of course, magnificent in beauty, but also meaningful and just makes each client feel proud when they wear it. So if that connects with you, please hit that like button because it really helps me out for this video. And if you enjoyed this and want to learn more about creating your own custom ring, feel free to reach out at vanessanicole.com so I can learn more about what your dream ring would look like. And in the meantime, I'm wishing for you a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.